This is Bill Meridian speaking to you on June 12th, 2026. On SpaceX Day, we're going to talk about SpaceX, but we'll go through a couple other little things first. In addition to the old BillMeridian.com website, which got too big, we have a second one, BillMeridianAstrology.com. So pay us a visit. Now, one of the two of the last videos, I pointed out that Uranus was going right over the Apollon in the USA chart. And in addition, Sedna, the dwarf planet, is there. Now, Apollon is a hypothetical planet from the Uranian system. And in 1969, when men walked on the moon, there was a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but men don't walk on the moon every 13 years or so. It was trine this point. But as my friend Diana Rosenberg pointed out, there was in space a Jupiter-Uranus-Apollon grand trine, trining natal Apollon. In other words, Apollon trined its own natal place and men walked on the moon. So what just happened? I had predicted there'd be some technological breakthrough. It would improve efficiency. It would help the military. And this point is trine the USA midheaven. So did the moonwalk in 69 make the USA look good? It certainly did. We just had the Artemis trip around the moon. So people actually got farther away in space from the US, from the Earth, than ever before. In addition, we have the breakout of artificial intelligence, which I predicted from the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction chart back in 2020 because Apollon was square Pallas. Apollon is distribution. It makes things widespread. Pallas is some gadget that enables you to do very advanced calculations. It's got to do with precision instruments and your work. So has all that made work easier? Yes. Has the military benefited? Yes. Look what's going on in the Gulf War. Look at some of the videos as the advanced technologies greatly benefited the United States military. So that's already come to pass. So let us now look at SpaceX, which started trading June 12, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. EDT. Now, let me explain. These are more properly called horoscopes of first listing, because sometimes when these stocks start trading, you have what's called a locked market, which is what we had today. There are so many buy orders that it takes the exchange some time to sort out the trades. So the stock is trading, the price isn't fluctuating until they get supply and demand in balance. And today, by the way, the 23% gain was about average for an IPO. So not telling us anything yet. But I predict it will go much higher. And by the way, it was as far back as 1948, George Bayer said the following about stocks. If you set up a horoscope, you set it up for the opening. Because like a candy store, if the store is not open at 9:25, you can't buy anything, but it opens at 9:30, you can. So it's like a horoscope of incorporation. You can't sue them legally until the company is incorporated. So June 12th, 2026, 9:30 a.m. was like the SpaceX store opened. Just because the price wasn't fluctuating doesn't mean it wasn't trading. And I've done this timed trades where you take a horoscope for the actual moment this price starts fluctuating. They add a little bit to the analysis, but I've used the natal, midheaven, and ascendant set for the opening of trade many, many times successfully. So let us take a closer look at this. First of all, you will note the moon is at 15 Taurus 14, and as we know from Uranian astrology, anything at 15 fixed is 45, 135 to the world points. So, and it's in the 10th house. So is that going to make the public excited about it, especially being conjunct Mars? And here's Uranus, Admetus and Ceres. So what do we have down here? But we have Apollon. Let us take a look at the 90-degree dial. Here we have the sun. The pointer is on the sun, and what does it equal? Apollon, Mars, and Zeus. Zeus is rocketry. Sometimes these horoscopes of first trade will reflect the underlying business. Like Alphen Fragrances way back when had Venus and Mars conjunct the midheaven in Leo, they sold sexy perfumes. I'm going to take another look at that in a minute. We'll come to think of it, we'll do it right now. So we're going to go like this, and we are going to bring up the 90-degree dial, which takes a little bit of work here. Now we have the SpaceX 90-degree dial, but we are doing it live. And as I pointed out, the sun equals Apollon, Zeus, Mars, Uranus, and Cupido. I'm not sure Cupido has any effect. But we can also look at the midheaven, which equals Mars, Hades. I don't think anybody's going to get murdered over this, but it's Venus, Vulcanus has great popularity. That is a bullish combination. And we can move this a little since we leave a 1-degree orb. And we've now picked up Jupiter, Apollon equals midheaven. The three most bullish midpoints that I know are Jupiter, Uranus, Jupiter, Vulcanus, and Jupiter, Apollon. We've already hit on 2 of them. So let us look now at the Jupiter-Uranus midheaven. Now look at this. It is on the midpoint between 0 Aries and the vertex. That's a planetary picture that again brings in the world point and also the moon. You notice the moon, you notice that little opening there between the moon and the pointer, and the little opening here, that brings the vertex, which is an angle. So you've got the vertex, moon, I'm not sure Juno plays any part in it, and here you have Uranus, Jupiter equals 0 Aries. Now in the future, if the company's reporting earnings, which it does 4 times a year, there are 252 trading days in a year, and these axes are well aspected. If you have the sun here and Venus over here, or sun here and Venus, Uranus over there, the stock is going to jump. First, you identify these axes and then wait to see when they are activated. If they are afflicted, then you stay away from it. Now, Uranus Admetus is a very bearish combination. It equals Sun Poseidon. I'm not sure Poseidon has any effect, but it does equal Jupiter Vesta. Vesta does have to do with investments with stocks. So the other bearish combination, Uranus Saturn, which can be sudden drops, equals Pluto and Juno. It really doesn't pick up that many important points. If it equals a lot of personal points, like the sun, midheaven ascendant, node, or 0 Aries, then it's important. And the other bearish combination right out of the book is Mars Admetus, which equals Vesta. Now, this is 26 Taurus 49, and this is 11 Aries 50 41. So if those points are activated in the future, when they're reporting earnings, you can expect a drop. So I could go on and on about this one, but we'll stop for now. And we will drop this screen, and we'll drop this screen, and we're back to the presentation. Now here's the SpaceX Incorporation. March 14th, 2002, El Segundo, California. Now, if the company's incorporated in Delaware, as I've said a million times, it's got an exact time stamped on the incorporation papers. But in other states, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and California, when you ask them, you say, when is that corporation a legal entity? In other words, when can I file a lawsuit against it? Well, they say, well, I guess not until midnight. So I set it for midnight. And anyway, you will notice that sets a 9 Sagittarius midheaven and a 9 Gemini Saturn and a roughly square Sirius and Mercury. But that is a bearish axis, especially because Saturn is conjunct Vesta. So if that is activated and SpaceX is considered, let's say, a partnership with someone else, you could say the partnership is probably not going to work out. But anyway, I throw this in for informational purposes. And And by the way, just to jump back one, SpaceX Incorporated, I want to point out June 25th, progressed moon trine, progressed node, which is not a big deal, but progressed sun is trine progressed Pluto, setting up a planetary picture between those four. That's very positive. And then progressed sun trines natal Pluto July 25th. Of course, the progressed sun, as Charles Jane would say, had about a 3/4 degree orb moving in, which is 9 months, and then 9 months moving away. So that's July 25. Now let's move to SpaceX first launch, May 25, 2012, 3:44 a.m. EDT, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Here we have a midheaven of 8 Cap, which is conjunct Pluto at 9 Cap, and Kronos down here at 6 Cancer, square Uranus, which gives us a T-square. And there's Zeus with a somewhat loose orb also in this picture. So if they're launching at a time like this, if that axis is afflicted, I would say there might be a problem. Now, Saturn was on Uranus a little while ago. It is now, I believe, has just crossed the ascendant. It's not a great time to be launching right now, but Saturn will not be there for very long. Now, here's Elon Musk. Now, the odd thing with Musk's chart is that today, the day of the first trade, Jupiter was 75 degrees to natal Uranus, and Jupiter was sextile progressed midheaven, both on the same day. Jupiter is transiting Jupiter, is trinatal Jupiter on the 19th. Uranus is sextile natal Jupiter July 5th. Does this all look beneficial? But that is very striking. Jupiter 75 Uranus. Now the 75-degree angle is out of the 24th harmonic, which I've written and spoken about and discussed with John Addy. And then Jupiter sextile progressed midheaven on the 12th. So that is a combination of Jupiter, Jupiter, Uranus progressed midheaven. And then 7 days later, you get Jupiter trine Jupiter. And then Uranus sextile Jupiter. Did it make him more money? Yes, it did. And now one of the esoteric secrets of financial astrology. This M, in case you're wondering what that is Midas, which is Charles Jane's unknown planet, exactly opposite Jupiter. He put out a book called Unknown Planets, which is a pamphlet, really, and is one page devoted to Midas. And it's windfall gain with little effort. And I found that to be very true. He was rectifying the chart of a lady once, and I said, Charles, if she has a Taurus midheaven, which is what he thought because of the way she appeared, then I said, isn't Midas there? And he turns, very good, very good. If you didn't know Charles, he was a combination of Copernicus and W.C. Fields. And so he put Midas on the midheaven and said, did you ever get a windfall gain of land or real estate through a relationship? Well, there's not much left. There's the 22-acre horse farm up in Westchester County, the house on Chesapeake Bay, down is at Maryland or Virginia, and the house in London. I sold everything else. She was married to a very successful commodity trader who then took up a relationship with a secretary. She sued for divorce, and Midas is a windfall gain. Did she make any effort? No. And he himself went long cobalt. Now, he was a specialist in exotic materials, and the Kinshasa province of Zaire was invaded. The price of cobalt quintupled, and he made himself a fortune, and he made the same thing for his banks, or the banks and the clients who followed him. That's Midas. It's windfall gain. So he has Jupiter exactly opposite Midas, which is equals on a 90-degree dial. So how does this look? I said, well, it's thus far, the IPO has moved about 24%, 23%. That's normal for an IPO. Do I think it is going to move well in the future or outperform? Yes, I do. Why? Well, Look at what Apollon just did. Uranus went over Apollon in the horoscope of the United States in the sixth house, and we just went with the Artemis project around the moon, which is the farthest people have ever been away from the Earth. And yeah, is it going to be a space industry? Well, look, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock had communicators. Now we have cell phones. And if you've watched enough science fiction, which I have certainly watched, then you know there are going to be colonies on the moon and space day, all this sort of stuff. So my feeling about this stock is for the longer term, if you buy it, 10 years, 20 years from now, you look back and say, boy, I'm sure glad I paid, what is it, 135? I forget what the stock closed at today. I'm so glad I bought that. It was the beginning of the space industry. So yes, I think the space industry is going to grow, and that stock will be worth a lot of money in 10 to 20 years. I also think that espresso will be $50 to $100 a cup, but a lot of this gain is inflation. So, new forthcoming book, Life Processes of the Uranian Planets, which I started writing in the 1980s. That's the actual cover. It is being prepared for processing right now, and I plan to have it out by UAC. It's not yet up on the website, but on the website you can find Mastering Geopolitical Prediction. You can find the Eclipse book. You can find Inserts 1 and 2, and all sorts of other products, the usual capitalistic forecast. So, thank you so much for listening, and I hope to be presenting a little more frequently now that my schedule has calmed down. Goodbye for now.